Hi folks, John Dunn here, RPG freelancer, publisher behind Meliorvia. I'm up here today with Mikey.
What is up, John? How's it cracking?
It's doing well. And yourself?
You know, we're here. We are live. And what are we talking about today?
Well, I thought we would talk about something from a galaxy far, far away.
Ooh, you know, it's kind of relevant in times like this.
Could be. I wanted to touch on a new space opera setting that Asmodee, FFG, and Edge are just publishing for the Genesis system. And when I say a new setting, it's not quite exactly. This is an adaptation of their Twilight Imperium setting that they've done an awful lot with over the years. So this is entitled Embers of the Imperium, and we do have copies up here at the store. The lead on this is Sam Gregor Stewart, and there's a whole bunch of other authors on this. I've done a fair bit of work for Asmodee and their Star Wars line and a little bit of Genesis, so I've worked with these guys, and this is another solid product coming out of them. So, you familiar with Twilight Imperium?
So I actually was telling you, I kind of heard about it through my sales and just being here, but I was like, did we review this yet? And you're like, no, so educate me.
All right, so Twilight Imperium is a strategy board game, right? It's a big honkin' box set board game. Pretty sure you guys have copies on the shelf.
Yep, we do.
It first came out in 1997. It's currently on the 4th edition, so there have been a whole lot of iterations of it. I think you guys also have a boxed game called Twilight Inscription, which is kind of a variant of it that's set in the same universe where you like write out the story. I'm not real familiar with that one.
Okay.
I just remember seeing it up here. There has been a previous RPG release set in the Twilight Imperium setting that came out way back in 1999. And there was also a chapter in the Genesis core rules where they talk about space opera, and that was the setting that was used for it.
Nice.
So there's been a little bit of material on this previously in the tabletop world and in the RPG world, but this is the first book that explicitly presents it as a setting for Genesis. Twilight Imperium is very much a space opera setting. So you've got these alien races and interplanetary travel, and the alien races, a lot of them are anthropomorphic. That mean anything to you when I say that?
Anthropomorphic?
Yeah.
I know the word right now, but you got to explain it to me.
So they're animals that look like people.
Oh, okay. Nice.
Right?
Yep.
So
yep.
you've got lion people and you've got bug people.
Have you seen Guardians of the Galaxy yet?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, so, yeah.
Right. Guardians of the Galaxy is very much a space opera feel kind of thing. So yeah, you're right on point with getting that tone right. This one is set in the kind of the remains of the Lazax Empire, and I might be mispronouncing that, but they ruled the galaxy about 3,000 years ago. There have been a series of different powers, and the book kind of presents some of that. But currently, in the ruins of that empire, the great galactic civilizations have gotten together and formed a council that meets on the world of Mechatol Rex. And they refounded this council about 10 years ago. And that council was really part of the previous empire. And they're just kind of doing this to try and form basically a United Nations of space kind of thing.
Interesting.
The council doesn't have really supreme power, but it presents an environment for these different civilizations to interact and negotiate.
I'd imagine it's a very diverse council.
Absolutely, yeah. And so the player characters are members of the Calaris paramilitary group who work for the Galactic Council. This group's only about 5 years old, but your PCs are basically troubleshooters. So they're going out in the galaxy, trying to fix things that are going wrong, trying to settle disagreements. Going through the book, it starts out with a character creation section. You get 6 different backgrounds, 15 different playable species, and 9 different careers. So characters come from a pretty broad range of backgrounds here. It revises your core Genesis skill list so that it's really a little better suited towards this specific setting. And you get a range of talents from all 5 tiers, and then a compiled list of which talents from the core book are going to be relevant to this setting and how they interact with those that are already here. It also introduces agendas and side missions. Agendas are basically your character's personal goals, which may be a goal because of their background, because of the civilization they're affiliated with, and it may be at odds with the goals of other people in the party. So you can have this kind of, added depth where the characters are trying to achieve their mission, but maybe trying to get something done on the side as well. And these side missions can really kind of develop their agenda and give everybody a little bit more going on. And then you have factions and allegiances that are also spelled out. Every character is going to be affiliated with those. And they talk about 19 specific great civilizations that are most likely to be your character's starting allegiances. After that, the book gets into equipment and gear sections. One of the neat things here is that there are cultural manufacturing differences. So, a piece of armor or even a piece of equipment from one galactic civilization is going to have different bells and whistles and different kind of core features and accessories that distinguish it from one that comes from another civilization, even though they might have the same ultimate intended purpose. You also get into weapons, armor, and, a range of adventuring gear that could be useful for characters that are exploring an entire galaxy. And then you get into upgrades for this equipment, so not everybody's gear has to be exactly the same, and artifacts. So, cool, more or less unique items that your character might acquire through the course of their adventures. After that, the book presents vehicles, and you get a section on ground vehicles and mecha. So, and they range from, wheeled things to walkers and hovercraft.
How giant are these mechas?
Pretty big. I mean, they're not...
Pacific Rim mechas?
I think they could get into that kind of range, yeah, but they're not like, Unicron planet-devouring size things. And then it also gets into fighters, shuttles, and capital ships. So you got your spacecraft that you need for any real effective space opera.
Of course.
Where you got, ship-to-ship combat going on up there. After that, the next chapter talks about the galaxy. It's kind of a generalized gazetteer. It presents a lot of the key important places throughout the Twilight Imperium setting. You get 18 pretty detailed world write-ups and then more briefer ones. So those 18 range from like maybe 1 to 4 pages. The rest of them are usually less than a page, somewhere in the range of a third to a half page, but enough to give you some hooks for future adventures. After that, it gets into the Caleres. Now this, again, is that paramilitary group that your PCs all belong to. And it talks about the responsibilities that members of this group have, different sub-organizations within that. These are typically people that are have very specific specialties, like, this guy's a negotiator, whereas this one might be more of a commando. And then the resources that members of this organization have access to. And finally, presents a range of threats that they need to deal with. So other factions and groups that really are opposed to any kind of galactic unification. This does get into some really interesting elements of the setting, including the survivors of past civilizations, particularly at the level of the Imperium. So past empires that ruled the entire galaxy, what the remnants of those might be doing now. After that, you get about a 30-page chapter of adversaries, pretty broad range of different threats from, typical NPCs that the characters might have to deal with in the course of their adventures to, let's say, more significant ones. Finally, there's a chapter that's focused on the Game Master. This covers setting up adventures and how you want to use that space opera tone throughout your adventures. And when I say space opera, I do mean, the characters have an opportunity to be heroic, which really is well suited to Genesis as a whole, and have an opportunity to really make a difference in the galaxy, even though they're just one person. After that, there is an adventure builder. It gives you a lot of different hooks and ways you can fit things together, and some sample encounters that you might either be used to build an entire adventure off of them, or as specific elements within that adventure builder. Whole lot of stuff going on with this book. Really fun source book. If you've played the board game and you enjoyed it, this can be a really cool way to explore that universe further. This comes from Edge Studio, which is part of Asmodee, an affiliation with Fantasy Flight Games, which is also part of Asmodee. It is a full-color book. It is a hardcover. It runs, I believe, 288 pages, and it is, I believe, $50. We've got copies up here on the shelf at Immortals Inc. If this looks like something you're into, if you've played the board game or even tried to play the board game because it is fairly complicated and time consuming, this might be something you want to check out. Stop in at the store or hit our website.
Well said, my friend. Everybody go check that out. Links below. See y'all next time.
Good gaming, folks.